Ever wondered how much control we humans have over our lives and in shaping our future? Are we free to change our future or are we predetermined? If so, to what degree? In simple terms, are we free or fixed? Modern society works with the belief that humans have freedom to choose their actions. As a result, they are responsible for impacts of their actions and intentions behind them. That brings order to our society. Accountability for one's behavior and its impact on others is an important pillar on which modern society is based. This is called human free will. Free will means that you are free in your choices and actions, and as a result, responsible for shaping your future. If we go by the notion that people do not have control over their actions, they cannot be held responsible for them. Then, how do you control crime or breach of commitment or encourage civilized behavior? That would be catastrophic for the society and its order, if its core belief collapses around which all systems work. So, isn't the debate already settled then? How is the question, are we free or fixed, relevant today? Well, you cannot deny real experiences. Things happen in life that are not of your own making and where you had no control. When you missed that dream vacation because of sudden patch of bad health, or win a prize in a lucky draw, you wonder about a stroke of destiny. It is not uncommon to see continued patch of easy successes or bad results in sports, in business, or in life around us, despite the same will and hard work to succeed. That leaves us with a good convenient majority that switches back and forth between existence of both the concepts of free will and fate. They argue that while you have free will to act differently, there are situations where you are not in control, and these are determined by fate. If you honestly look back, many amongst us could be attributing success to their free will to act and dumping failures on the fate. And then there are some who believe that everything is predetermined by fate or destiny. This is a question of control of our lives. Were you making things happen, or were these predetermined for you? Who or what controls our lives and in what measure? Are we free or fixed? Historically, many people have tried to find answers in many different ways. Ancient Egypt, Indians, Greeks, and Chinese thinkers have discussed and written on the subject. To understand the enormity of the question that we are trying to solve is to look at some simpler ways to explain this. The argument that God created everything and knows every future and past moment means that everything is predetermined. But if everything is determined, you are not responsible for your actions. Then why do anything? Why do you feel responsible for outcomes of your actions? Why we feel emotions of pride and guilt for our actions? The argument is then adjusted to say that you are responsible for what you do and have some degree of freedom in choosing them. And how much is that degree of freedom? You do not get a clear answer. An opposite argument is that you are free to act and are responsible to shape your future. This explains the compatible feelings of pride and guilt and your sense of being free to act. But then it struggles to explain determined behaviors in nature that constrain you and outcomes from factors outside your control, like accidents or surprise gains. So the argument is then adjusted to say that there are some degree of predetermined factors as well. And what or how much control do we not have? Again, you do not get a clear answer. You can see why it is complicated to find an answer and even to understand the explanations put forward. I am attempting to explain this by digging out the underlying reality to show you how it actually works and use it to explain who or what controls our actions. Along the way, I will try to convince you with reasons and research, and in the end, leave you with a clear answer to the question, are we free or fixed? We freely make choices every day of our lives. From the choice of breakfast today, what clothes to wear before heading out, what words to choose to write next message on your mobile, what subjects to choose in school or college, which house to buy. These are all voluntary or involuntary choices you make out of your free will. At ice cream shop, you bought vanilla ice cream but you could have opted for chocolate. You were in control of those choices and could have chosen either flavor. Choosing vanilla was probably an instinctive choice, but in the end it was your own intent and free decision, without any external influence limiting your choice by force. More serious life choices you make are voluntary, decided after due deliberation. From the circle of friends you keep, books you select to read, which subjects to study, choice of college, who to marry, etc., are also your free choices. They may not be as intuitive as picking an ice cream. These were considered choices based on practical options available to you. No one was holding a gun to your head to make you pick the option you eventually did. You were free to make these choices after reasonable assessment and time available to you. We are examining our society's foundational belief that we are the author and owner of our actions in life. We make it happen and are responsible for it. All our interactions, actions, and experiences are influenced and originate from these five areas. If we are free to act and control what we consciously do, we must be able to find evidence for it in our experiences. And we will examine degree of our freedom to act and think in each of these areas. Universe is where everything exists. Its inherent nature and rules have impacts on us. Is physical universe a fixed phenomena or it has a scope to go by someone's free will? We'll examine the nature of universe in this context of how free or fixed it is. Then we will start to examine human free will at different stages of life, starting with the beginning moments of life. As we grow, what level of control we have over our own body. After all our actions come out of it. Next, we will look at the freedom and degree of control we have in our decisions and actions. Everything you do comes from the choices and decisions you take about it. Thoughts, ideas, desires, and intentions are not considered predetermined expressions, and these drive all our decisions and actions and eventually influence our future. We will examine degree of freedom and control on our thoughts and intentions. This covers all the levels we interact with and all types of physical and mental acts we do during our lives. Our conscious experience tells us that within physical laws and with no physical constraint placed on us, we are free to think, to decide, to act, be the author of our actions and ideas, and to choose our life's experiences. Our freedom should be easy to find at each of these levels. Let's begin with point number 1 to look for some answers. Our universe is evolving by chain of events driven by cause and effect, following a set of universal rules since its inception. What exists today is an effect of an earlier cause which itself is an effect of its prior cause. Each effect becomes the cause for next effect and so on. From the current state of universe and position of all its particles, universal rules can calculate their immediate previous state and so on backwards until the start of universe. In the same way, we can calculate forward steps and know what will happen to our Earth and the solar system, and also the future state of our galaxy and to the extent the universe. This is because the rules are predetermined and are uniformly applied to every piece of matter. If you roll down a ball from an inclined plane, it will move downward under the influence of gravity and its movement will be strictly within the laws of motion. It will not use its own or anyone's free will to change its course. It will only change its course if a new physical force is applied on it, which will have its own prior cause. We live in a deterministic universe where everything unfolds step by step from previous state to next strictly according to a set of universal rules. While our world is deterministic, at the smallest subatomic size there is randomness governed by probabilities. Since the universe started evolving, the universal rules, whether they are deterministic or random, do not leave any room for changing it at the will of a conscious being. If you want to know more about this, I will recommend watching my episode number 7 titled Creation and Creator to understand how that works. It is argued that physical universe may be deterministic, but the whole argument changes when life and consciousness comes onto the scene. We are free to think, have desires and intents. Our life and behavior is not deterministic, and so are our actions and thoughts. Let's begin examining this from starting moments of life, which is our point number 2. Think about it. What about your coming into this world is free? To start with, you had no control over conditions you were born into. You had no control over choices of your parents, the set of genes you inherited, your gender, the type of body you got, the culture, environment, or influences you were born into that shaped your life. You came into this world with absolutely no control over these things. These were already decided for you. Conditions given to you at birth determined a lot of experiences of your later life as well. For example, your environment at birth determined and reduced the kind of food choices you had, while your biology and chemical composition determined your dietary preferences and compatibility. It simply eliminated a huge set of options from your dinner table. Similarly, the whole menu of your life experiences was limited by conditions determined at your birth. You have already been working within that reduced set. The new unexpected events or experiences you had outside this limited set are also a result of prior causes and effects from an environment external to you that you had no control in shaping. You are simply being subjected to them. You might say that these are just the initial conditions where you had no control. But your life had just begun. You now have the opportunity to create your future by using your body and mind. That's all you have got, to work with the given environment around you and exercise control on it. It's a fair argument and brings us to point number 3. Let's begin to measure the control you have over functioning of your own body. Look at what you're doing right now. Maybe you will say, you're sitting here watching this video, entertaining a random thought here and there at the same time, and maybe checking your phone in between. But right now, your body is doing millions of things that you are not even aware of. Your body is making red blood cells, your lungs are collecting oxygen and transferring it through your blood cells, your heart is pumping blood to different organs, your brain is receiving oxygen and energy, billions of bacteria are living in your body and digesting food in your gut right now. Are you doing all this? Are you making it work? What if your body starts to work differently due to its genetic code and create problems? Are you responsible for it? Certainly not. In fact, you will be the victim of it. You feel proud of your long hair, shapely nose, or smoothness of skin. You think you are responsible and take pride in these features. Remember the genes you got? Can you really take credit? You might say that you do have control over your body to influence the external environment around you through your decisions and actions. For example, you played well and got selected in your school soccer team. You got good grades to get into the college of your choice. You had talent and worked hard to succeed in business. Through your right choices, decisions, and actions, you overcame the given limitations to create your path in life and succeed. That is your free will to decide and act. But we want to find evidence and measure your degree of control. And this is our point number 4, to examine human freedom in actions. Let's take a simpler example of a free decision in action. So you want to read a book now, you go to the bookshelf, pick up the book and sit down to read it. You had the intent, took the decision to read and coordinated your body movements to do it. This was certainly a free action that makes you the author for your action and responsible for acquiring new knowledge. It is a fair argument that your actions give you the results that you see. Your actions do have consequences and will result in change. But the real question is, was your action free? Did it come out of your free will or not? How free were you to act differently, to read a different book, or not to read and do something else? And that is what we are examining, the degree of freedom you had in those actions. As long as we can show that all or even some of these actions are a result of you wanting to do them at will, you have freedom and control over authoring your actions. You can take credit for doing your actions and to shape your future. Let's understand this from a very simple act. You lifting your right hand when you want to. This can be a very simple example to demonstrate free will or your freedom to act by showing that you can lift your hand at your will. If you want, try doing it now. Give it a few seconds, think about lifting your right hand, feel the go, no go deliberation in your mind, and at a certain moment, at your will, make your decision and lift the hand whenever you want to. As you do this, you will go through a thought, decision, action sequence. Here your free decision caused the action, which is lifting your hand. You will also notice that all this while, you are conscious of each of these steps. Your thoughts, considering when to lift your hand, the moment of your decision, and then your act of physically lifting the hand. You are free to decide and in complete control of this action. What if I tell you that while your experience in mind was real, that it is you lifting your hand, but you had no control over this action once the decision was taken? This was not a demonstration of your free will to act. Let's see what goes on in your brain when you make a simple decision like this, lifting your hand.
I need a volunteer. So right before, what is your name? All right, Sam. I'm going to record from your brain. Have you had this before? No. Okay. All right. I need you to stick out your arm for science. Roll up your sleeve a bit. All right. And so what I'm going to do, I'm putting electrodes on your arm, and you're probably wondering, I just said I'm going to record from your brain. What am I doing with your arm? You have about 80 billion neurons inside your brain right now. They're sending electrical messages back and forth and chemical messages. But some of your neurons right here in your motor cortex are going to send messages down when you move your arm like this. It's going to go down across your corpus callosum, down onto your spinal cord, your lower motor neuron, out to your muscles here. And that is electrical discharge. It's going to be picked up by these electrodes right here. And we're going to be able to listen to exactly what your brain is going to be doing. So I'm going to turn this on for a second. Have you ever heard what your brain sounds like? All right, let's turn it on. So go ahead, go ahead and squeeze your hand. All right, so what you're listening to, so this is your motor units that are happening right here. Okay, so let's take a look at it as well. So I'm going to stand over here. And I'm going to open up our app here. So now I want you to squeeze. Yeah, so right here, these are the motor units that are happening from her spinal cord out to her muscle right here. And as she's doing it, you're seeing the electrical activity that's happening here. We can even click here and try to see one of them. So keep doing it really, really hard. Yeah, so now we've paused on one motor action potential that's happening right now inside of your brain. Okay. Do you guys want to see some more? All right. That's interesting, but let's get it better. Okay. I need one more volunteer. Okay. What is your name, sir? Miguel. All right. You're going to stand right here. So Miguel, when you're moving your arm like this, your brain is sending a signal down to your muscles right here. I want you to move your arm as well. All right, so your brain is going to send a signal down to your muscles. And so it turns out that there is a nerve that's right here that runs up here that innervates these three fingers. And it's close enough to the skin that we might be able to stimulate that. So that we can do is copy your brain signal that's going out to your hand and inject it into your hand so that your hand will move when your brain tells your hand to move. And so in a sense, she will take away your free will, and you will no longer have any control over this hand, okay? You with me? All right, so I just need to hook you up. You know, when you lose your free will and someone else becomes your agent, it does feel a bit strange. So I want you to relax your hand and turn your hand. Do you feel that a little bit?
Nope.
Okay, do it again.
Nope. A little bit.
A little bit? Okay, so relax. No, hit it again. Okay. Oh, perfect, perfect. All right, so relax, do it again. All right, so now, all right, so right now, your brain is controlling your arm, and it's also controlling his arm. So go ahead and just do it one more time. All right, so that's perfect. So now, what would happen if I took over my control of your hand, and so just relax your hand, what happens? Nothing. Why not? Because the brain has to do it. Now you do it again. All right, that's perfect.
So a simple action like lifting your arm is a particular signal pattern in the brain. It is equally true of all other complex tasks. From this, our action step gets changed a little bit. What really changes here is that while you feel as if you acted, your brain acts and the action happens. The action was automatic in the brain once the decision arrived. Lifting the arm that you felt as your action was actually an output of action taken by the brain. Once initiated in the brain, the action was automatic. You had no control. If brain is stimulated directly to create the same signal, same action will follow. Then, where is your control on the action after the decision point? But what about the experience in your mind that you were lifting your hand? Here is a thought experiment to understand that. Think of your body like a bicycle that you are sitting on with feet on pedals. The bicycle will move when you move the pedals. You will also feel that you are running it, but the bicycle will still move when pedals are moved by someone else. Imagine that the pedals are tied to a blue machine in the picture, that runs it when a start signal is sent. If machine's start signal is triggered by someone when you had no intention to pedal, your bicycle will still move, but you will not have the feeling of agency that you are doing it. But if your decision in mind to move the bicycle directly triggers the start signal of the machine, which then starts moving the pedals, you will get the illusion that you are running it. You may wonder that mostly you can run the bicycle, but occasionally it runs on its own. But you will not realize that at no point you were running it, and it was an automated action once the intention or decision to move occurs in your mind. Your body is like that bicycle that will move when its brain pedals are moved. If your decision and action signals sent by your brain are aligned, you will feel like you are moving it. If the nerve impulses from brain do not get transferred to spinal cord to activate muscles, no movement will occur. In that sense, body is a machine run by the automatic brain. You are not the doer of your acts. Once the decision in brain triggers the automatic action to activate right sets of muscles. Back to our example of you lifting the arm. You might say that you are not separate from your brain. You were still the decision maker that resulted in the action by the brain. You were free to think and make that decision before action began, and that still makes you the creator of that action. But we still need to find the evidence that it was your decision that created the action. These are matters of the mind. What you are going to decide cannot be determined until the moment you made the decision. A good test that your decisions are not free and that they are predetermined can only be if, after having made your decision, someone else can tell consistently what you have decided without being privy to your decision. For the ultimate test, someone else must know of your decisions before you decide, and that is a fair test if it can be done at all. Our focus now shifts to the control over our decisions. We know that action by our body is a signal created in brain when a decision is taken. We have to see how those signals get generated in the brain. If you are generating it at will from your decisions, you are in control. It is as simple as that. Experiments in neuroscience have been conducted to identify how decisions happen in brain. These experiments show that brain plays a central part in decision making. Their results show us a way to measure our control on our decisions. Benjamin Libet conducted this remarkable experiment to show relationship between the brain signals and our conscious decisions. The experiment measures a person's brain activity in the run-up to a decision to press one of the two keys at will. Electrodes are placed on the scalp to measure a specific brain activity leading up to a decision. The person is being asked to watch the marker rotating inside this clock to keep a sense of the moment when decision was taken. She is advised to make up her mind and press one of the key when the urge or decision to press a key comes to her mind. That feeling of decision in mind making her to act represents the sense of free will a person feels before deciding or initiating the act. She would then record the position on the clock when the decision was taken. At the same time, a machine recorded her brain activity and the hand movement to record the timing of the action. The person records a number of decisions by pressing a key at her will. The results are then presented to show what brain does when decisions are taken. In the Benjamin Libet's experiment, the person took the decision in mind about 200 milliseconds before taking the action. But the brain had begun to build the activity for the particular decision 550 milliseconds before the person was consciously aware of the decision. This shows that our brain decides for us before we become aware of our decisions. What you saw was a simpler device. The new fMRI machines have recorded simple decisions up to 5 seconds before you knew them. There are finer debates on Libet's experiment about how early brain takes a decision, but a safe scientific consensus is that brain takes the decision some moments before you become aware of it. If brain is taking decision before we are even aware of it, how are our decisions free? In fact, this gives us no control over our decisions and resulting actions. But our personal experience of deliberating choices and making a decision is different. We feel we are doing it. All the while arriving at our decision, we feel in control of choices and a sense of having taken the decision ourselves to cause the action. How can this real feeling be ignored? We need to explain the contradiction of not being in control of decisions and resulting actions but having the real feeling of us being the agent for our decisions and actions and being responsible for making it happen. To really understand this, we will have to look at how our brain works and integrates with our decision making. We will keep it simple and short, but enough to get our answer. Our brain is a complex organ. Its basic working machinery are neurons, which are used to transmit information or signal to other neurons, to construct messages that it receives and sends out to us, to muscles to make us act, and to gland cells to maintain hormonal and chemical balance that are critical for the body to function. Our brain is made up of 100 billion neurons. We can think of them as nerve cells or brain cells. Each neuron has thousands of synaptic connections to pass signals to other neurons, each of which has thousands more connections and so on. It is a huge network of 100 trillion synaptic connections between neurons. Depending on the type of signal it receives, a neuron can trigger hundreds or thousands of other neurons, who in turn can trigger the ones they are related to. These inputs are coming in from all senses like light, sound, speech, touch, smell, etc., including the inputs that you are not even aware of consciously, like your internal body functions, sensitivity of your skin, to name a few. At any instant, a tremendous traffic of messaging and signals is moving all across this network. This is the continuous work brain does to make sense of all the inputs it receives. You use conscious brain to make decisions, to plan, to reason, give attention, and to think. In that sense, it is powerful, but depends heavily on the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind does a huge amount of work, but does not get credited for what it does for us. It manages your routine work like brushing your teeth or tying shoelaces to execute a learned skill like riding the bicycle. It regulates your body functions and controls what you see, hear, and do throughout the day. It is responsible for your reflexes, storing memories, and life experiences. Over 90% of your activities are controlled by the subconscious mind. So, a lot goes on in your mind that you are not aware of. In your interaction with external world that you see and experience, brain plays a central part. It is important to get the sequence right in which we perceive things from the outer world and even think. For example, you do not see first and then make sense of it. Eye is just a receiver of light, which the nerves convert into signals for brain. What you see is a set of impulses created inside the brain. So you actually see through the brain. The sequence is the brain sees first and then you become aware of it. Of course, it gets very complicated with 100 trillion connections operating together. But the control of brain is real. Like a person can be made to lift a hand, do a number of other body movements, you can also be made to see pictures, numbers, words, visuals, and have certain sensations, feelings, and experiences that feel real by stimulating specific parts of your brain directly. Your reality is a video played for you after the action has happened. All your experiences are in the brain. It collects multiple parallel signals from different sections of the brain, tries to make sense for you in its own way, and then delivers it to your consciousness. When you touch your fingertip to your forehead, you feel the simultaneous touch on fingertip and forehead. But the nerves that connect the forehead to brain is 2.5 inch long, compared to 3 feet for the ones that connect the fingertip. Since the signal travels at the same speed, the signal from fingertip takes longer to reach the brain than from the forehead. Then how do you feel the touch at the same time? Because the brain is buffering signals it receives, computes, and gives you the feel of touch at the same time for signals that arrived to it at different times. Due to all this making of sense, after action has happened, the conscious experience is slower than the reflex action. It is like your computer receiving signals from the internet, computing and buffering them, and giving you a smoother feel of watching the videos. You experience reality with a slight delay. Like we discussed in episode 6 on time, you do not experience reality in real time. We have seen that our decisions are not free and are taken by brain before we even become aware of them. Then why do we feel the sense of agency or the experience of having taken the decision ourselves to cause the action? You can blame this on the interpreter module in your left brain that makes sense of information available to the conscious brain. This means it basically creates stories for you based on limited information it has. This sense of agency in our consciousness creates the illusion of being free in our decisions. Here is how it happens. The brain activity builds up to generate our thoughts, intentions, and choices during the selection stage. When this surge in brain activity reaches a threshold, it results in the decision point. The action circuits in the brain are initiated. This creates the body's response, resulting in the output of the body action itself. At the same time, when decision point is reached, a sense of agency, a feeling that you are causing it, is created and becomes an experience in our consciousness of having taken the decision. Now, this is the sequence in which it happens. Both the sense of agency and action by brain are initiated at the same time after the decision point. Because the sense of agency is felt before output is noticed, we feel that it is the cause of action, and we feel ownership and responsibility for our decisions and the resultant actions. This explains why we become aware of our decision after the brain has already decided. The little white clouds show the steps of which we are consciously aware of. And in our conscious experience, we become aware of the decision before we sense the physical action. Although outside the conscious experience, decision was taken in brain before we became aware of it. Just know that your experiences are being managed and delivered for you. But in general perception, we are still the thinkers of our thoughts. Our desires and intentions still leads us to decisions and actions. The free will, if it exists, must now reside in our thinking process, in our desires and intentions that drive our choices, decisions, and actions. If our thoughts and desires are free and created by us, they are still the creator of decisions and actions. And that will show that we have something with us that directs this automatic brain and gives us control on our actions and our lives. Even our intentions and desires lead us to do things that impact our lives and that of society around us. And this takes us to our last standing pillar for existence of free will, our thoughts. So, what are thoughts? Where do they come from? How free are we to think? Where the thoughts, intentions, desires, and impulses to do something come from? Inside the brain, the relentless exchange of information makes the brain continuously bubbling with neural activity of electrochemical signals. Each sensory input results in a cascading activity, resulting in patterns to emerge. Thoughts are what bubbles up to conscious mind and are just a pattern of impulse across a group of neurons. Memories, images, and meaningful thoughts are formed by stable patterns. These are interconnected based on experiences where a thought or an image connects to a network of others. The most repeated patterns are deepened like water creates trails traveling through the land over and over again. These paths or trails become stronger memories and are recollected quickly than others, less recognizable paths. Brain circuits are chaotic and are capable of spontaneous network activity due to an incomprehensible size of 100 trillion network connections. This also explains the continuous random thoughts occurring to you all the time that you cannot stop. A random brain activity can influence your choices. That is why sometimes the most recent influences change your long term analysis at the moment of decision making. Your thoughts are not immaterial stuff coming from outside into the brain. It is the particular brain activity pattern that results in a thought. It is a result of prior causes coming through connections made in the brain or could be a random signal. Neurons are also made of matter and are governed by universal rules governing matter. Specific inputs create a specific signal pattern and can be recognized. Your thoughts, intentions, and desires are a physical state in the brain, and it is all happening inside this box on your shoulders. You can think of conscious thoughts coming from subconscious activity, like the butter comes to the surface from whipping the cream. Imagine that you can only see the butter, not the cream. The butter will just seem to emerge. In that sense, you do not create your thoughts, they emerge, they appear. It is rather simple to understand the emergence of thoughts. Think of a fruit, any fruit. Do not go with a preset mind, do spontaneous free thinking and play along. Think of a fruit. To the count of 3. Now, where did that name of fruit come from? It does not matter which fruit you thought of. Let's say you thought of apple. Did other choices come in before you went for apple? It could be that you thought of banana, orange, and then settled for apple. Why apple? Why not banana? That you also thought of? You do not know. What about a fruit you knew about but did not occur to you? Let's say cherry that did not come to mind. For some reason, it was not in the choices that came to you. Were you free to think of the fruit that did not occur to you? Certainly not. You also do not know why you did not choose banana, which occurred to you. Apple just came to you from nowhere. You just do not know why you finally settled for it. When pressed to explain, your interpreter in the brain will create stories around it like you had not had apple in a while, so you probably felt why not pick apple? Well, you have not had orange in a while, why did you not pick that? These are all post hoc or after the event stories our brain cooks up to get ownership of what we did not create or cause. The consideration of choices before you came to one decision gives the illusion of free will. It gives you sense of being free in the past to have selected a different option like banana or orange. It leaves you with the feeling that you could have picked any fruit you knew, including cherry, but you chose apple. To you, your thoughts come from nowhere. You cannot create your thoughts. You cannot choose what you will think next. You have no control on it. Some people say there is a soul or consciousness which is real them. The thoughts come from soul or consciousness which is separate from the brain. They say since soul or consciousness is their real self and is source of their thoughts, they are owner and creator of thoughts. But even that does not make any difference. If a soul is thinking for you, you are still not free to think because you do not know what the soul will think next. How is that thought free that comes from a soul you have no control over? If you only know about it when it comes to you, where is freedom in it? Where is free will? Whether your thoughts are coming to you from prior states of your brain, or are a product of random activity in the brain, or coming from an immaterial soul kind of a stuff over which you exert no control, no matter which way you look at it, you do not get control on your thoughts. You are not creating your thoughts, intentions, and desires. You are not free. There does not seem to be a place for a free thought to exist. Some people counter this by casting doubts on Libet's experiment that showed the brain makes our decisions before we are consciously aware of them. Even if our conscious choice is happening at the same time as brain does it, it is still coming from deep recess of brain activity that we are unaware of. So even a disagreement with Libet's experiment does not prove that free will is real. Everything you see, you sense, you do, you decide, you think, your deliberations and your reflexes, all that your brain does it for you. It is capable of cooking up powerful post hoc stories to explain how and why for your experiences after they were delivered to you. It is capable of creating many illusions. That you are in control is the most powerful of them. Make no mistake, this illusion has been extremely useful to us, as it gave us tremendous capability to socialize and cooperate beyond any other species. It helped us work together to build pyramids, cities, and comforts for ourselves. While it is useful for us, the reality is it still remains a powerful illusion. We do not create our thoughts, intentions, and will. They appear from prior causes that we are not aware of and we have no conscious control in shaping. It is tough to grasp that free will is an illusion. People find it hard to believe that sense of agency or the real conscious feeling of us being the initiator of an act or creator of a result is an illusion and is separate from the act itself. For those who may not still be fully convinced by now, I will share 3 sets of information to break through this illusion to see the reality behind it. These are: humans are wired to believe free will is real. You do not know why something happens, and you could not have made a different choice in the past. It can be shown that brain is capable of creating the illusion of free will. The ability of subconscious brain to independently control the act with a false sense of ownership in conscious brain is demonstrated through psychology experiments in hypnotism. When people are hypnotized to act in a certain way on a clue like sound of a whistle or a clap, they actually believe they are doing it by their own will, while others know before them what they will do next. People who have been hypnotized to, say, clean the painting on the wall when they hear a whistle will actually get up because of their own urge to do this and start cleaning the painting on the wall. They have no memory of being hypnotized, and the person genuinely believes and feels that they are acting of their own free will. When asked to explain their action, the brain makes up post hoc stories to explain this predetermined behavior. They might say, I thought the painting had a dust patch or something else to explain their action. The person genuinely feels they are acting out of their own free will and are very surprised when told that others knew before what they will do. It is clear that our brain is wired in this way. While it controls our acts, its interpreter module cooks up stories using limited conscious information to claim ownership of action and results. Those who study and practice psychology will give you plenty of research on this behavior. You do not know why something happens or why a particular outcome came about. Sam Harris explained it the best. Everyone can recount the time when you so wanted to be better in fitness or in a badminton game or any game of your choice, do better at school or at work, but all your attempts failed. You tried and failed to make an impact. You got bored and stopped making effort. Why you encountered so much resistance and did not get results, you have no idea. But then it suddenly began to change. You started winning games against the best player in your group, impressed the teacher in the subject you wanted to do better, or got a great idea at work that sealed a new business deal. Suddenly, the results started to improve. Your enthusiasm is back. Everyone sees this big change in you. You cannot deny that your choices, decisions, determination, and your effort played a role in it. How can you explain your ability to do all this today? Where did the idea that sealed the New Deal came from? You created it? How about creating the next idea right now? You cannot do that at will. That idea just came about. You can explain your hard work and discipline now, but you cannot explain why you could not stick to the same discipline and regime earlier, though you tried. Or you worked equally hard earlier, but there were no results. You can create a story of what was different now, but that is only with the benefit of hindsight and built around factors that you did not control. You wanted to do this all this while, but why it worked in one case and not in other? Oh, so you worked harder this time? Earlier you wanted to be better. Now you really wanted to? What is the difference? Clearly, the difference is not something that you brought about. You can change your life and yourself through efforts and discipline, but you cannot know why you were able to commit to such an effort and discipline today and not last time. You are either lucky with the outcomes or you are not. Intentions, choices, efforts influence your behavior, but they themselves are a result of chain of prior causes over which we do not exert any control. Be humble in your successes, you did not create them. The illusion of free will creates another false impression to think that my life would have been different had I made different choices in the past. Free will gives you the sense of being in control of the choices and therefore makes you feel that you could have done otherwise in a past situation. So you think that if you had chosen a different course in college or the company you choose to start your career with, you would have been in a different position today. The fact is, you could not have done anything different by rolling back to the past, given all conditions remaining exactly the same. If you can rewind the reel of reality backward to go to an earlier decision point to try making a different choice, remember that the whole universe will move backward with it. With every particle in the universe in exactly earlier state, all your prior influences being same as they were, your experiences and external factors on you being the same, your brain states exactly the same and subjected to same recent influences prior to the decisive moment with no later memory and experiences after that rollback point, you will think of the same thoughts and arrive at exactly the same decision. Your thoughts and decisions are a product of neuron activity at the moment, which follows a determined path moving from one state to the next under a given set of influences or prior causes. Thinking of making different decisions in a previous moment of time is like imagining yourself in a different universe and facing the same situation. Do not fret over past choices. They were the only thing you could have opted for under the prevailing conditions. In summary, you are not the creator of your thoughts. You are just a witness of your thoughts appearing as a result of prior brain states or randomness. You are quick to own that thought as yours. You have absolutely no free will to create your own thoughts, desires, and therefore the resultant actions. Where does that leave us? It can be scary to know we do not willfully control our thoughts and actions. All systems that maintain order in society are based on concept of free will. So will not absence of free will lead to chaos? If you cannot hold people responsible for impact of their actions on others. It raises a number of fundamental questions. I will cover some important ones that could be hovering in your mind by now. If we are this automatic machine and our thoughts and actions are not in our control, then we cannot be held responsible for our actions and their outcomes. Where does that leave our legal system that punishes people for their intentional bad deeds to others and to society? This would lead to absolute chaos if we cannot deal with crime. Second, where does that leave the moral order in society? Morality that has worked so well for us, where people are encouraged to be responsible and not cheat each other. Third, if everything is determined, then why make any effort? It will still happen. Handling crime is a critical issue. Today legal system is based on holding people accountable for their behaviors and actions and uses system of punishment and vengeance to control it. Without punishment, how do you create the deterrent for crime and socially harmful behavior? A psychopath who has killed his family members in cold blood deserves no mercy. Such brutality has to be controlled and the person put behind bars. In an actual such case, the criminal was found to have brain tumor later during his medical tests. The tumor was pressing on certain part of brain to create intentions and actions to harm and kill their dear ones. It is already known in neuroscience that pressing the same region of brain under medical supervision induces these intentions in an otherwise mentally healthy human being. Imagine a person who was controlled by such a brain disorder, coupled with his abusive childhood, tough life experiences, gradual build-up of brain states up to a given moment, eventually succumbing to pressures that are not of his own creation. Knowing this fact, you may not be as angry about this person as you might be earlier. Though still a danger to society, you may now allow some room to change your opinion of this person from being fully responsible for this brutal act to being a victim of his circumstances. There will be a shift in your moral assessment of the crime. This was an extreme example used to make the point that changes to material structure of a person's brain does change the person's behavior and actions and drive certain thoughts and urges. Smaller changes might result in acceptable behavioral changes and preferences from person to person and even influence your interests and thoughts. It is a spectrum. Where you lie within this spectrum of influences determines your unique set of behavior, thoughts, intentions, and actions. Without doubt, people with behaviors and actions dangerous to others will still need to be locked up and confined. But absence of free will shifts the underlying approach from punishment and vengeance to corrective actions and restrictions where available. There was a time earlier when people with mental illnesses were punished by law and society because they were held responsible for their condition. Just few centuries ago, animals were held responsible for killing humans and destroying property and were jailed and given death penalties. Between year 824 and middle of 18th century, there are recorded instances in both Asia and Europe. Today, we know that animals are driven by a certain behavior and have no control over it. Imagine having a perfect medical and psychological cure for certain violent behaviors, say serial killing. No doubt serial killing is a brutal act. Given the availability of a proven treatment, would you deny serial killers a cure and hang them for their brutality? Or would you jail them but allow treatment and an option to return back to society if found cured for life? It is a question ahead of its times, but you can sense to which direction it is likely to go. From assigning intent to wild animals for attacking us, to people or to imaginary spirits for mental illnesses and using violent means as cures, it took centuries for the concept of free will to recede from these areas. Knowing the reality that they have no control over this behavior, we are now more empathetic and helpful to their conditions. Ironically, by moving away from free will in these cases, it made ourselves more humane. In the same way, The belief of us being free is now receding slowly from a specific human behavioral space as understanding of brain and human behavior increases and more cures are found. Further reduction in illusion of free will is not going to create chaos, but make the world more compassionate to certain behaviors and even safer for next generations. People say that if we have no control over what we will do next, it implies that everything is determined. Then why make any effort and do anything at all? Just sit back and let it happen. Things are anyway happening on their own and should still happen. Having no control is equated with determinism. This is the biggest concern that comes up with having no free will. This is a great question that requires better understanding of determinism. It is the toughest to grasp. To not do anything is not a test for determinism. In fact, this is fatalism. Your action is a choice that has consequences. To sit back and not do anything is itself a choice and will have its consequences. Try not doing anything for a day and see its consequences. If you are lucky, you will feel a strong impulse to get up and do something. If not, the consequences could be fatal. When not doing anything creates more and more unfavorable effects, your automatic system will have a stronger urge to respond. There is no such thing as not doing anything. Not doing requires an effort and is itself an act with consequences. Like other thoughts, that thought of not doing anything is itself emerging on its own from the deep regions of your brain's prior causes. So, are we free or fixed? The evidence makes it pretty clear that human behavior is fixed. Our thoughts, choices, decisions, and actions are not free. The sense of free will, or sense of being free in our actions and thoughts, and therefore responsible for making it happen, is an illusion. More and more evidence is coming up to support this. We live in a deterministic universe. Determinism means that our responses are determined by prior causes and physical laws. It is all about chains of causes and effects. Your choices and actions are causes and result in outcomes or effects. Each effect becomes the cause for next set of events and so on. All causes and effects follow set natural laws and are deterministic. That you have no control over your next thought, choice or action does not make them meaningless. What future moment you will get next depends on your choice or action in the present moment. That choice or action comes out of a black box of prior causes that you had no conscious role in creating. The outcome will be determined by the resulting chain of causes and effects that you cannot control. At the same time, your determined response is a necessary part of this chain. There is no escaping it, but the feedback from results does alter your brain and becomes embedded in your set of prior causes to influence your next action. In future, it might alter your response to similar situations and influence different choices and decisions. But it will still be a response over which you will have no control. It is a feedback loop that you cannot avoid. Because determinism allows understanding of acts that result in better outcomes, you improve chances of getting favorable results by doing the right set of things. There are no guarantees to generate right responses every time. It is a game of probabilities and improving the odds. Using generalities, I can say we are determined, living in a universe that is a combination of determinism and randomness. Your illusion of having control on your choices and decisions is stronger than your rational thoughts. This illusion of control is not going to go away, but keeping the fact of our determined nature of reality alongside the illusion of free will make you more compatible with the system you happen to exist with. Do not resist the idea that you are not free to create your thoughts and therefore your actions. Knowing you have no free will makes you humble in success, resilient in failure, generates more empathy, less hate and vengeance. Accept the reality with courage and openness. And here, I succumb to the illusion. To accept it or not is not in your control. This information is now part of your brain's physiology and prior causes. It will act on its own. Whatever decision you will eventually settle with, you will not create it. It will emerge. Thank you for watching. This is Atul Mathur.